like there's no tomorrow.
Welcome to the BingKing podcast.
Sure.
How's everyone doing? I have Alicia here, back again. How are you?
I'm good.
I don't know, how long has it been? It's been a year since we did the last one?
Probably.
Yeah, it's about a year.
Yeah.
Things are a little bit different. You got into the Hall of Fame. How's that?
It was wonderful. I've actually gone into 2 Hall of Fames.
Right.
So
The previous one you had already been in, and then this past
yes,
one was...
this one
is the big one.
the big one, and I ended
Right.
up getting in June, and it was fantastic. It was 4 days of events, and just being around those guys that
You've always looked up to, that you're
you know
always...
that I've seen
Yeah.
fight and stuff. It was wonderful to be a part of that.
Yeah, that's got to be incredible. Who made you the most starstruck? Anyone in particular?
Not really. The ones that I wanted to see weren't there.
Like who?
Like Roy Jones.
Yeah.
He wasn't there. That's the one I'm really. Mike Tyson wasn't at this one, but we had a few that were there that actually that I fought on cards with.
Yeah.
That was like, oh wow, you know.
You're here too. How? Yeah. That's got to be great. What does it feel like though? Do you really feel like you've accomplished something? Is it something like that? You're like, finally, I get the recognition. Or you? I don't think you really care about that.
Actually, that was the part of it that, you know, people that follow female boxing already showed me recognition.
Yeah.
It was this side that didn't. Because even when they're announcing me and saying my record and saying, you know, all the accomplishments, a lot of people there and, you know, quite a few of the male boxers was like, oh, wow, really didn't know that. I didn't even know about you. I just saw your name and looked you up.
Yeah.
So just that sort of recognition now, it's like, yeah, okay.
It's nice to have.
They're like, wow, you know, they knew Lucia Riker because she was around. Her name was very big earlier.
Yeah.
And she had a lot of, you know, she was signed with Bob Arum. She was signed with big names. So with that kind of promotion behind it, people knew her.
Right.
Ann Wolf was there. That's really who I wanted to say.
Okay.
To see, you know. And she knew. You know, the women knew, but the guys really didn't. And that was a big thing.
Yeah. So it was really cool to get that kind of recognition, to be like, hey, you know, I'm here. I've done all this. I mean, after a pretty long career, it's nice to have that, you know, everyone now knows.
They still don't.
Yeah.
The ones that were there do. But others don't.
Really? You don't think that? I don't know. I think it's something big, just to have your name in there with
It
everybody
is
else.
very big
It's gotta
because
be, it's huge.
because you go into that museum
Yeah.
and it's like I'm number 8 that has been, you know, of
Yeah.
the women. It's just like, oh my goodness, I'm the 8th person that got into this.
Huge.
And the names before are, you know, Ann Wolf, Leila Ali, Lucia Riker.
Right.
You know, these names that you see, and then I'm right after. It's like fantastic.
Yeah. So after that, now you're back.
Yes.
You're not staying too long.
No, I'm only here until the end of the year.
It's a little rough for me. I was hoping that you'd stay a little bit longer. But before I get started in that, did you watch any of the recent, big fights?
I did not.
Okay.
I have not been able to watch. I actually wanted to see the Tyson Fury
Yeah, and Francis
and
Ngannou fight.
Ngannou fight. I haven't even seen the highlights on it.
Okay.
But I knew it wasn't going to be an easy fight.
Really?
A lot of people were talking about, you know, Tyson was just going to walk
Run
all
him
over
over,
it.
yeah.
And I knew it was not going to be an easy fight because Ngannou is very strong.
Yeah.
He's unorthodox but he's a striker.
Yeah.
You know, he's not a boxer. He's not a traditional boxer, but he's a fighter.
Yeah.
And it's a whole different aspect because I understood that because I came from kickboxing before I got into boxing. And my mentality was different. My mentality was that of a fighter.
Right.
So, going into boxing, he always wanted to box. That was his goal from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So he always had that in mind. And his fighting in the UFC is more boxing than anything else.
It is.
So, and he's so strong. So I was feeling that he wouldn't be as orthodox as, a true boxer is. So those are very hard to fight.
That's interesting because you look at most of the MMA guys that go into boxing, they don't usually do very well. I think he's the first one that's really done like pretty well. Like there are people that are saying he could have won that fight or should have won that fight. I haven't watched the whole thing either.
I've read up a lot on it.
Right.
And I think traditional boxing, I don't think he won. But he did a great showing, and it really, put him on that echelon to know that he can fight against any of the top guys. That's what, that legitimized him.
Yeah. Because Tyson Fury's been against Deontay Wilder, who hits hard.
Right.
And you'd just be like, oh, he can't hit as hard as Deontay Wilder, then what chance does Francis really have? But he did really well.
Right.
Yeah. I was shocked. I didn't think it would go down this way.
No, I did. Yeah, I pretty much thought that it wouldn't be that, it wouldn't be a walk in the park. I didn't think it would be as easy as people, made it out to be.
No, that's I did not take your side. I really thought it would just he's one of the best boxers, heavyweights ever.
Yes.
Right? He's incredible. My take was that he was probably taking it a little bit easy. Like he hasn't been training as hard as he should be for this fight. That was my take.
He probably did not take him very serious, and that's a shock. But I was also reading that he didn't look. Like he gassed out very early. But then again, when you talk about people that fight in MMA, you're training. They still fight. They fight 25 minutes.
Yeah, championship rounds is 5 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
And no, but all their fights are 5-minute rounds.
Right, 5 minute
so
rounds.
So their stamina is different than in boxing.
Correct.
So you get shorter rounds, you can actually put more pressure.
I see what you're saying. That's interesting. It still doesn't. Just historically, MMA guys haven't done well. Even Conor McGregor, who is majority a striker, has not done well in boxing. So it was good to see that Francis is kind of the first one that really did very well.
Right.
Did you watch the what is his name? Zhang Zhilei fight?
No, I didn't see any of
Big Bang.
I didn't see. I haven't watched any fights.
I know you don't watch. You
back.
don't like to watch fights, anyways. You've told me that you.
I generally watch the big fights. It's something I tend to do. I tend to watch the big fights, but since I've been traveling, I haven't. Since I've been back, I haven't really seen anything.
I mean, it was huge news here, right? When it happened, everyone was like, the next big Chinese boxer. Like it was big news here. Like all of my social media was just big bang, big bang, big bang, and he's made it big. I'm very excited for, next big Chinese champion. We'll see how it goes. But I think he's brought in a lot of casuals recently. I've seen a lot more Chinese people going to boxing classes. Like, I wanted to ask you, because last time we talked about why you came to China, but why'd you get into boxing? Actually, I wanted to know. You went dancing, karate, kickboxing, then boxing.
Yeah. Boxing was only to get my hands better for kickboxing.
Okay. Why kickboxing then? Because...
But kickboxing was the next evolution from karate. Because this is it. I'm always a competitor.
Right.
Performer.
That's...
Dance. Once I got injured from dance, torn meniscus in both knees, and I could not dance anymore. On that level, I needed to exercise, and my brothers were doing karate.
Right. I remember
So
you said
since
that.
I was very young, my brothers were doing karate, and my oldest brother was trying to get me into the sport from the very beginning. But once I was injured, just for exercise, I started doing karate. He was like, the transition was very easy.
Yeah.
And then I would do all the competitions. So I did, every competition, and I was winning them all. And for me, it was just the next challenge.
You ever think that you could have been like an office worker? Or
I was
like,
an office worker.
but like an office person or like a politician, actress.
I
Everything's
was an office worker. I have a degree in computer systems, and I worked in Wall Street. But I worked full time and competed
at the same time.
and trained full time. I went to college.
To do that.
No, I went to college. I worked my way through college. I worked full time, went to college part time, nights and weekends, whatever, and did my karate, did all of that. All. And it was when Y2K happened.
Uh-huh. My God.
And then we ended up, they started downsizing.
Yeah.
That's actually when I got out of working on Wall Street. Yeah. And just went like, I'm going to take this time and just fight. Mm-hmm. So I actually never thought of boxing as a full-time career. No. Just so happened that I got laid off.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to take this time and just concentrate on fighting. And that's how it happened.
I always feel like when we talk, you don't love boxing like you love dance.
I did not love boxing like I love dance. Dance is my first love.
Yeah.
Dance was everything that I planned on doing.
Mm-hmm.
So from age 6, my goal was to become this professional dancer, Broadway, whatever. That was my goal.
Yeah.
And when that went along the wayside, when that was taken away from me, I was rudderless. I really didn't have any other thought in mind. Mm-hmm. So I just was like, just get your degree, just work. And literally, my brother saved me by dragging me into karate.
I love when you say that because I've heard that recently from a lot of friends. I've hear jiu-jitsu saved my life or Muay Thai saved my life. And I'm always like, I've never felt that way about, I guess I did that for swimming kind of, but I did that when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. So I never really understood that kind of, as an adult, a sport saved my life. It was always kind of weird to hear.
For me, if I stayed in doing computers or on Wall Street, I would be rich. I was making a lot of money in that sport, in my area.
Yeah.
So my life would be totally different. Totally different. But I'm pretty sure I would be very bored. Very certain that I would be very, very bored.
Yeah.
It would just be like, I'm going to work and going home.
Yeah.
It did not fuel a fire in me.
I get that.
And
I get that.
I mean, for some people it could, it can, but it really didn't for me. I did not find a love of, I loved computers, but also once I stopped working full time, I threw away every computer knowledge that I had.
Yeah. Now
when I open a laptop and it's like, I could have fixed it on my own, but I'm going to call someone instead, so, but when I got into karate, I was there like every day, like morning class, evening class, morning, go to school, go to karate, go to school, go back to class. Once I was in a sport, I really put my all into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really put my focus into it.
What makes you do that? Because I see that here too, but I'm curious, what made you just kind of be like, this is it. This is the thing that I'm doing today. for this foreseeable future, I'm going to be doing karate. For the foreseeable future, I'm going to be doing boxing, and just 100% both feet in. What's in you that makes you do that? What do you think?
I don't know. I know I come from a highly competitive family. Highly competitive.
I think it's a brother sister.
And I think that is the thing that, but I do know my grandmother was always like, if you're doing something, put your all into it.
Right.
That's just something we grew up learning. And I think once I knew this just gives me this kind of energy, there was nothing else that I could do. I mean, karate, it's funny because when I went into karate, it was just like, okay, I'm just going to do it for exercise. And then a few months later, it was like, no, I'm getting my blue belt. No, I'm getting my yellow belt. No, I'm going for that black belt.
Right.
It's just those kinds of sports always have an end goal. And I think that was the thing for me. It's like, I know from A to Z, there's an end point.
Yeah.
So I'm going for that end point. Kickboxing was just the competition portion of it.
Yeah.
And then boxing, I've never thought to become a world champion in boxing.
Yeah.
It was just, I got into boxing to get better at kickboxing.
Yeah.
To be more well-rounded as a fighter. So boxing for me never had an end point. It was just like, once I was in the sport, there were so many nuances to this sport that just kind of clicked to me. It was just like, I got to learn this much more. That's the thing that is more interesting for me in boxing.
Yeah.
It wasn't that I loved the sport, because I didn't. I hated watching it, because all they had at the time when I really got into the sports was the, Tyson, the heavyweights, and it was all about the knockouts. And for me, it was just the brutality of the sport, and I really wasn't interested in that. But once I got into the sport and started seeing all the differences in it, that you really have to think in this. It's not just like go out there and I throw a punch. You really have to think. You have to plan. You have to, once that happens, that's what kind of, caught my attention.
I love that. A lot of my friends say that the same thing about jiu-jitsu.
Right.
And I'm currently in this mindset. I'm working on this one kind of like position, and it's always in my head. I go to sleep thinking about it. I wake up, I'm still thinking about it. And I'm just trying to figure out this one position. And so I understand that.
Yes.
But I also see like a lot of people kind of who are hobbyists, but get really, I want to say they get too deep into it. But is there a too deep, right? I was talking to a friend, and he was like, yeah, every morning I put on my heart rate monitor. I check my heart rate variability. And I was like, I know professionals that don't even do this. And you are like, they get really into, he gets his blood work done. And I was like, I think you're getting into the wrong part of I don't know. His reasoning is different.
Right.
And so that was always weird to me. But I see that. I see that in running. I see that in a lot where they get really into the data. And I was just like, why don't you just enjoy the sport for the sport? But they're like, no, I want to know exactly where my body is at this moment.
It's funny. I mean, when I started doing some jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
I kind of got sucked into, like, right away. It was about, I wanted to learn everything.
There's
it's
so
like,
much.
No, but the thing about it is that my learning is I want to learn this in compartments. I need to learn all of this at the same, this, one thing, this. And it was really hard for me because after we learned something and then we had a drill, and I can't drill what I just learned. And the next class, I want to learn that same thing.
Yeah.
Because I'm not good at that yet.
Yep.
I don't understand that. But once you're like, all right, let's roll, I got really competitive. And once I started getting sucked into that, I was like, no.
I know exactly what you're
I was like, I can't do this anymore. Also because I got injured right away.
Yeah.
So it was just like, no, I can't do this because it's really going to get me on that path. So I really had to separate myself from that. And it's very hard. I find that as a lot of high level competitors, for me, it's always funny that when I saw a lot of trainers that were used to be fighters before,
Yeah.
and they got so out of shape, and you're like, how did you
know.
gain so much weight?
I see that too.
And now I understand it, because now that I'm not fighting for something, that I'm not training specifically for something, I can't train. I have not gotten to the part where I love the sport to just train for this hell of it.
Yeah.
I'm not there.
You think you're gonna get there? Because you said that last time.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, now I'm starting to do self-care because I'm letting myself go and I'm getting injured because I'm not doing any self-care for myself. But I don't know if it will be boxing.
Mm-hmm.
It might be something else. And I
Also,
think that's the thing
tango, some
I
kind
think
of
that's the
dance.
thing. Yeah. I think that's the thing, that it's going to go full circle again. I can't dance anymore, but it will be something with movement.
Yeah.
Because I loved that before.
Yeah.
And even though I love boxing, and I can't even do the movements in boxing anymore. I was known as the mover.
Yeah.
So I can't even do that anymore. But I understand now all those trainers that I had that just got so much out of shape that I'm like, oh, now, I mean, I gained like 6.5 kilos
Yeah.
in the time that I've stopped boxing,
Yeah.
and it's just like, oh my goodness, so just getting back to just loving, doing something for the love of it.
Yeah.
And no, it's not boxing. Right now, it's not boxing.
Right now.
And I don't know how long, because I've seen a couple of my trainers that actually years later just started going back into training, and they're like, they lost back weight and stuff like that.
And they feel great.
They love it.
Yeah.
I don't know what it will be for me.
Okay.
But right now, it's not boxing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I every time I get back into a pool, I get that feeling again. I'm like,
Yes.
oh, this feels great. I'm great at this. I know my body remembers those movements. And so when I'm in the water, I'm like, I feel smooth. Not as smooth as I was, but
Right.
remember this movement, and I remember liking this movement. So I enjoy just being in the water, even if it's not as fast as I can go. Just being in the water, going through the movements a little bit more slow. I don't know. It makes me happy right now. So
Right.
we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see how.
Right. I don't know. I think the difference is that for me, I enjoyed sparring.
Yeah.
That was my thing.
Competition.
No, sparring.
Oh.
I didn't like training so much, doing the mitts, all of that. But if there was a sparring session, I was there. It's like, oh, we sparring today? Boom. I loved sparring. So for me, that's more than the training. So the training aspect, hitting the bag, hitting the mitts, I never enjoyed that. It was just something I had to do.
Right.
But I loved sparring. And now when I train people, and then I had the sparring class, and
Yeah.
when the guys were sparring, and you guys were like, we need an extra person. That's the part I love. That's when I enjoyed doing anything. But then when I did it, it was like, oh my God, I have to train to get back into
have to,
shape to
yeah.
do the sparring. Ugh, I don't want to do that portion. I just want to do the sparring. And every time I'm doing mitts and I'm teaching someone something new and to use in sparring, and they come back and they were like, oh my God, I used it and it's so good. I'm like, I want to do that, but I don't want to do the training for it.
I hear that all the time right now, because I'm arguing with friends about, do you need to go to the gym in order to do X sport, rock climbing or jujitsu? And to me, the answer is always yes. You have to do basic weightlifting, basic just movement drills. You have to do all of those in order to do the sport that you want to do. Otherwise, you're going to improve slower. it's going to be more dangerous. Your joints at more risk. You need to do all of these other things in order to do your sport. And a lot of people are like, no, I only want to do my sport. I only want to do the exciting part. So a lot of jiu-jitsu people, you'll see at purple belt, they don't show up for warm-up. They kind of show up for like the drills. They only show up for sparring. And then they get hurt. And they're like, well, you haven't done any of the basics in a while. You're only doing the fun part. You're going to get hurt. And I tell all of my friends that. And they're like, no, I just want to do the fun part because that's the most bang for your buck, right? That's what you enjoy the most. But I think the boring parts are more important. And I tell all my
they
friends.
are. And if I'm competing, yes.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm not. Which is why I don't I don't jump in as much when you guys are sparring. And I did it when
we needed someone.
When there is an extra person, someone missing.
Right.
You know. Otherwise, it's okay. I'll sit and go, if I was in there, I would be doing this. Well, I'm not, but.
What do you think pulls people into boxing? Like the hobbyist, the casual. What do you think pulls people into this?
I mean, it's different for.
What are some of the big reasons that you see?
I know a lot for women. It's self-confidence, and self-esteem. Yeah. For women, it's that just a lot of them being able to control something.
Yeah.
And they, and I guess for guys, you feel strong, not because it's funny. I'm training someone and they come from work and their mind is all on this hard, day is so rough. I hate this. And then 2 minutes into the training and I'm smacking them left and right. And they're like, oh no, I'm just thinking about work. And I'm like, you can't.
Yeah.
You can't.
You have to be here.
And then 5 minutes later, their whole focus is in on the session. They no longer think about work. Then once they're finished, they're like, oh my God, yeah.
I feel better.
Because you really have to focus in boxing. I mean, you can be in a class and you're hitting the bag and you can think about other things and stuff. But when you're doing on a one-on-one or if you're sparring or stuff, your focus has to be in the class.
Otherwise, you're going to hit in the face.
Yeah. So the one thing about it is that it because it keeps your focus there, your ability to let everything else go.
Yeah. I think that's more important than ever now.
Yeah. It's so much.
I see a lot of my friends that work office jobs now and they need something.
Some kind of outlet. Yeah, some kind of outlet. Just, but I'll find someone who is just, they come in, they're angry at something and I put them on the bag for the first 2 rounds. The energy that they just had for all that anger gets put on that heavy bag. They hit the heavy bag so much, they're totally exhausted because they put so much getting rid of it. And then now it's like, all right, we can train now.
Right. Now we're good.
Yeah, because I'm not going to take all that pounding that you're going to hit. But you hit that heavy bag for 2 rounds. And now you're like, yeah, I can. Even the warm up sometimes when I have them warm up, it's like, okay, now you're exhausted. Let's work. It's so needed. Just any kind of exercise is so needed, especially when people are.
I think combat sports in particular really demand your focus.
Yes.
Because I can go on a swim and my mind can wander, right? Like it's not something that requires you to be super present right now. I think runs are the same. Like a lot of people that go on a run, your mind can wander and it'll happen.
Right.
But being in a sparring session is so I need to be here right now. If I even for a second, I think about work, I'm getting hit in the face.
Yep.
So you have to be here. And there are not a lot of sports that require you to do that. I think that jiu-jitsu, like all of these combat sports now are really important.
You also have the fast-paced games like basketball and stuff like that, where, I mean, you're running down the field and you're not thinking about there goes the ball,
Yeah.
whatever. So you also have to be focused in that. Those kind of games where it requires you, if something changes in a split second. So
Depends on what level
I
you're
mean,
playing.
you're not gonna, well,
Right? I think a pickup game, you can kind of be like, you know, I've seen a lot of people just kind of, and then they get yelled at. They're like, their
Yeah.
teammates are like, hey, what are you doing? You know, but I've seen people
but then
wonder.
we go, what are you doing? And then they're like, oh, but now they go, oh yeah, I gotta focus.
Right. But even in class, right? Like I remember when we were at UFC Fit, and people would leave class to go play on their phone to answer a phone call.
Right.
I'm like, we are here only for 45 minutes, maybe an hour, and you need this phone call now.
Right.
And I'm like, the best part of boxing is I'm wearing boxing gloves. Like I physically cannot answer my phone, right? There's none of this
Yes.
kind of motion.
Yes.
It's just good to be here. In an hour, I'll pick up my phone and I'll be back in there. But right now, like I want to be here.
Yeah.
And to me, that's
no. If people
so
if people come and they're like, oh, I really, I'm just came from work and I'm waiting for this phone call. I'm like, you can't take class.
yeah.
Then.
Don't be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't take class.
I think that's so important. It's just good to have that outlet because now we're so 24/7, right? Your boss is always expecting you to be on call. Like every job is like, hey, can you go onto your computer and do this? Can you go talk to this client now? I'm like, I don't know if I can deal with that.
See, that's how I got out of corporate America.
You don't regret it at all?
No, I don't.
Of course not.
Not at all.
You're at the top.
Not at all.
Can you imagine that though? Can you imagine, even if it was an office worker? I can imagine you being an actress. You know,
I did that as well.
I can imagine just like actually going that route though, like really pursuing it because you said you love the performance aspect, right? The performance aspect of boxing, performance of dance. I can imagine actress, Hollywood, Alicia. Why not?
Well, I was in I did stunts. That's the part I actually liked. I
Can't do that anymore.
I only did it right.
Yeah.
No, you still could,
Don't hurt.
but I actually did stunt directing once as well, which was really cool.
Yeah.
So
I can see that. The directing
Yeah.
part seems pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But then it's not you performing, right? I don't know. I see it. I feel like every time you talk about dance and being kind of, people watching you, it's different. I feel like you light up a bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's what boxing was for me. Definitely being on that stage. Everything for me was a stage. So when I was boxing, it wasn't about me hurting the person. It was about me performing for the audience. Because a lot of people go in and say, oh, I just want to knock this person out.
Yeah.
And that was never me, because I'm like, I knocked that person out. It's done. 1-2 rounds is finished. I love my 10-round fights because it draws the audience in. They are following this story.
Yeah.
And the story, especially when I went away to fight, which was the majority of my career. If I went in someone else's hometown and everyone is rooting for this person, and the story starts with them rooting for that person, and then as it goes along, they're like, oh no, this person is really good. Oh, she fights beautifully. Oh, I don't want to like her, but she's doing some really good stuff.
Yeah.
And in the very end, when and I win, and they're like, or even if I lose on a split decision, or something like that, I'll have people come up afterwards and go,
That was
"Oh my
great.
God, that was such a fantastic fight. You should have won." But this was a fantastic fight, and I can't believe I'm complimenting you when I'm for the other person.
Right.
And for me, that's the story. That's the performance, and just having them just go. And I prefer that to just stopping the person early in a round.
It's also performance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like a Tyson fight is also performance. It's
Tyson fight is one round.
one round,
It's
yeah.
one act.
But-
It's just like, it's so fast. You're like, oh, okay.
went to the bathroom and it's done, right? But I feel like that's what most people want to see, right? Even now, you look at the big heavyweight fights and people still want to see the knockouts.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
And I
why
think,
people like
I think
MMA.
it's more so, it's general audience as opposed to the boxing aficionados.
I see.
Boxing aficionados want to see a fight. They prefer to see you break that person down and then you knock them out than this thing happened that fast.
Because then they say it's luck. They say it's a puncher's chance.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. It's just like, oh, that, because they could have said the same for Ngannou. Oh, it was just a lucky punch. He just moved this way and then he got knocked and he's down and he came back and he did. So, but if the knockout happened much later, then you'll be like, oh, he broke him down and then knocked him out. But he knocked him down in the third round.
I get you. So how do you feel about what's going on right now? They have a lot more bare knuckle. I see that actually happening more and more.
Well, they had bare knuckle before.
But
it's a big thing. It was a big thing before as well. It was a big thing before, and everything is cyclical. So you're gonna have these cycles. That's the thing, because boxing is right now at a low point.
You think it's at a low point?
It is at a low point. Okay. So that's why you have now these influencers, all these different things to try to bring it back. And it's mainly because it's not changing. They're not, you have to figure out a way to draw other people in. And that's what these influencers do. Some of them are actually trying to be boxers. I mean, Jake Paul is trying to be a boxer. He's trying to take it seriously. But he's training, but he's also putting real boxers on his cards.
Right. I think it's a good thing he's doing.
Yeah. So that's the thing because even a good friend of mine, a great boxer, she just did a bare knuckle thing. And I'm like, oh, no. But it puts you out there again. Because if you're not getting showed on the regular channels of boxing, we got to do something else. Yeah. That's what it is. It's just like, okay, we're going to do something else to try to draw people in. And then they'll go, oh, let's see you in this other, more traditional way. We'll follow you. But, yeah.
I like what they're doing. I think that they're bringing a lot of eyes back into the sport, which is not a bad thing. But boxing kind of went downhill ever since MMA, is what I've always felt like. Because MMA had less rules, right? There were more tools, there were more options, which allowed for more styles. And when I was talking to my friend about boxing, I feel like styles have become much more narrow now in boxing, because as the sport progresses, I guess people kind of know what the judges want to see, which allows for fewer styles to really emerge. Do you disagree?
I think the biggest thing with boxing is that the promotion of it, the promoters, they are banking on this one person. There are no more super fights. There used to be these huge super fights. Guess what? The women are the one that are doing the unification.
I know.
The women are the ones that are doing the unifications. These guys are not. I'm the WBC, I have this belt. WBA, I have this belt. You're not the top if you're not unifying all these belts. And the women are the ones doing it. Katie Taylor, Clarissa Shields, all these, Alicia Baumgartner, those are the ones that are going out and doing the fights and fighting all the top level people. Yeah. And the guys are not doing it. And that's the thing. That's why boxing started going down, because everyone is holding on to their belts and they're not doing.
You think it's an ego thing?
It's more of a money thing.
Okay.
It's a money thing, because this promoters and that promotion, they're not willing to, I don't want my guy to lose.
Yeah.
And if we want to fight, we got to make the money. Who's the top name? And some of them are not even in the same weight classes. You just have to do all these super fights. And that's the thing. You used to have, Bob Arum and Don King, and even though they hated each other and stuff like that, at least they made the fights.
Yep.
And that's nothing is going on now.
You think it's a money thing, not an ego thing? I always think it's an ego thing.
So is it. It's an ego thing for the whole promotion. It's not just an ego thing for the fighter. Because the fighter is not the one that says, no, I don't want to fight you. you as a top fighter want to fight the top person.
Always.
I mean, tell you, all those guys want to fight the top person. It's always their management that go, no. No, if you lose, then this. No. Guess what? You had the best fights were trilogies and stuff like that. You had Mickey Ward and Arturo Gatti. He won. Those were the great
Amazing.
fights.
Yeah.
You know, but now it's just like, no, because if he won, then no, you always have it in your contract that you can do a rematch.
Right.
And that's the best part of it.
I mean, the Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, I was a fan. I was waiting for
Yeah.
a couple of those. You know,
Right.
that was great. I had a lot of fun watching those. But I think that with MMA, right, there were more styles, and I always enjoyed watching the way Joe Rogan puts it. He'll watch the silhouette of someone and know, oh, that's who that is. You know, you won't have to see a face. You just watch the silhouette move, and you'll be like, I know who that person is. I know who, because he has a very unique style. I think you still have a couple of those, but it's becoming less and less, because even MMA is becoming a more mature sport. And so people are starting to train MMA as a sport, as opposed to, I was a jiu-jitsu guy, I was a,
Right.
you know. And so the people are becoming more and more, I guess, narrow.
Well, because they're also becoming more well-rounded.
Yeah.
You cannot
Correct.
just be the jiu-jitsu person anymore.
Doesn't work
because,
anymore.
Yeah. So they are becoming more well-rounded. For I think for boxing it's the same, because you have to become more well-rounded. You know, so people now are training for, strength training and stuff like that, because, hey, I was a speed person, and even though I'm not knocking people out, now I really have to, train a little bit more, because so, yeah, definitely in boxing but the styles, you still will know the styles, because different countries have different styles.
Yes, correct. Currently,
So
that's still the case.
That's
Correct.
still the case.
Yeah.
Although a lot more places, you'll have a lot more people going to the U.S. to train, to learn that kind of,
Right.
to get a little bit of that. But they still will have that same basic
Look.
style from where they
Yeah.
come from. I will know an Irish fighter. I will know a Mexican fighter.
A Cuban fighter.
I don't have to see them to know or
Right.
know their names or anything. I will know from their styles who they are. So,
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But do you think that eventually that's also going to go away, right? People are going to, I'm going to ask a Russian coach to come over and teach me the Russian style, and then just to understand it at least. And then eventually those all kind of merge, and then there's like a more unified, and then it gets kind of boring. That's how I see it, right? I always feel like as a sport progresses, it gets more and more boring, because the I guess judges know what they're looking for. Everyone knows kind of what it takes to win, or to win over the judges. So that's
I think that's the portion that I don't like. I don't like the judges.
Yeah, I hate it.
I don't like the judges, because you will always have, if you watch one card and this judge is up here with this person and this one, and the scores are so far apart.
You're like, what were you guys watching?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the portion that I really don't like about the sport of boxing, because if you watch basketball or football or anything like that, a score is a score.
Yep.
They might make a mistake and they'll go
Watch the replay. But usually
we don't want replay in boxing, but
No.
But the fact of the matter is, a point is a point. But in boxing, it's so subjective to who the judge or referee is.
Yeah.
That you're like, yeah, most of the times it's like, oh. But that's also the thing. The audience is the same. It's so subjective. Because if you really like one person,
Yeah.
you are not going to notice. Yeah, it's
Their
like,
faults.
it's like, he's throwing a punch and we're going, that didn't hit. And you're going, yes, it did. And you're like, it didn't even touch a person. You're like, no, it did. He did so much. And it's like, can we watch this again?
Yeah.
Can we watch and don't even, try to take your emotions out of it? And that's one of the hardest things of the sport. That's I guess that's the good and bad of it. But having those referees that all want something different.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I know I might want to, I might go, yeah, the referee really wants this to be, I got to be a puncher. they think if I hit harder, that referee might like it.
Yeah.
But this referee might not go, it's more about how many punches you throw or whatever. So
it's hard to say,
Yeah.
right? It's too subjective.
Yeah.
I remember beginning of this year, there was a jiu-jitsu thing in Shanghai, a competition, and I was considering going. And our entire class, an hour class, was spent better understanding the rules, the rule set. And all of a sudden I was like, why am I doing this? This is like going back to school. It was basically an hour of, if this person's knee is in front of you here, is this a disqualification? Yes or no? Can you do this type of ankle lock or this type of ankle lock? And I was like, I don't enjoy this anymore. Like, I just want to go and do some jujitsu. And instead, this has become a classroom where I have to now understand I cannot twist his knee this way. That side is, knee reaping. That side is illegal. And I was like, I don't want to be here for class, right? If there's too much of that. And I was like, I might not compete in jiu-jitsu again. Just because I was like, there are too many rules. I don't know if this referee will DQ me or not. If that referee... And I was just like, that's not the reason that I do this sport. Like, I kind of do the sport really for what you said. I'm here because I enjoy sparring with my friends. I enjoy the rolling after class. Like, that's my favorite part. And I can do that without having to go to a competition. So sometimes I feel like, why am I even bothering going to these competitions? Like, it's just, some guy that knows the rule set slightly better than me will probably win. And I did not study as well, so I lose. And that kind of sucks. Like, that, it takes all the fun out of it, is what I feel like.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can go into it and just are doing it for fun.
Yeah.
But if you do go to a competition, you have to change that mindset.
I know.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
So if you don't, then it's just.
But that's also why I see a lot of people that come into boxing and they only do it for, just the training aspect. It's for the cardio aspect even. It's not even the actual sparring. They're just like, I just want to break a sweat. I'm done.
Yes.
And I think that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people make fun of like cardio boxing, or like, I don't see a problem with it. I actually think it's great. It's safe. Can't really get hurt doing it. As long as your hands are okay, you're great. And, you're breaking a sweat. You're exercising.
Right.
I actually think that's fantastic. Like, I wish more people would be doing that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many classes like that.
But they get made fun of, don't you think?
Definitely when it first came out.
Yeah.
Definitely when it first came out. I don't think so much anymore because it's more now specifically exercise. It's just on that route of exercise. So if you know that's a cardio boxing class or a cardio kickboxing class, you know what you're getting. And you know that it's not going to be technique. So, yeah. No.
That makes sense. So after China, let's go. What are you looking to do? Wait, different question. You've been in China this long. If you had stayed longer, let's say another 2 years, what would you like to have gotten done? Or like to have accomplished here? Because
initially when I came here, even though it was to teach, my mindset was I was going to teach professional. So I actually wanted to get into the UFC PI.
Yeah.
That was my ultimate goal to, because even the first
Train athletes.
Even the first gym that I came at, they
Socially.
had boxers.
Yeah.
They had guys that competed, and it was like, great. You guys are doing professional.
Yeah.
And I did train them just a little, and they just did one major fight here before everything shut down.
Yeah.
But that was my thing. That's what I was going into. That was the thought process that there's not a lot. This is just a, small percentage in the sport of boxing. It's going to get bigger.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to be on the ground floor of. So I didn't specifically come just to teach in a boxing gym, just classes.
Right.
That was my mindset. because I mean, that was already something that I was doing in the States in
Yeah.
Gleason's gym. So it was just like, just let's see, let's bring someone up from the ground floor, and I want to see how far
been
I can
great.
take that person.
Yeah.
So that's really what I would have liked to do.
But now, as you're kind of transitioning out, what are the future plans?
Well, actually, I mean, there are a couple of professional female boxers that are in the state of Florida that wanted me. They're like, "Oh, you're coming
Back.
to, you're going to be in Florida. Could I train with you?" So I'm actually going to end up going back into the professional aspect of it.
Great.
But as I said, I started getting a lot of injuries. So now I'm actually transitioning to, okay, what's the next phase of my life?
Yeah.
And what will help me. So I'm thinking more of doing less of the boxing training. You know, I'll teach pros and stuff, but I'll still do a little bit less of that and work with them from, but on a professional aspect. But as I said, I'm going to get my yoga certification.
Yeah.
There's a couple of certifications that I actually want to get.
What else?
So, but they're all in that sense. There's
Physical
yoga.
therapy.
It's so funny that when I was in the States, I always wanted to be
Physical therapist.
well, assistance. Being on that scale, I always wanted to work with physical therapy.
Yeah.
I don't want to go back to school.
I know. I know exactly what you
Really don't want to go back to studying, learning all of these things. But so I don't know. I mean,
I'm telling you, I think physical therapy, especially for the elder generation, is probably one of the best things you can do right now.
I will be some of the certifications I will be getting is to work with seniors.
Yeah.
So I will be working with seniors. I don't know if I'll do physical. It's just so much work to get the degree in that,
In that field, I know.
that field. It's so much work. But I will be getting certified to work with seniors.
Yeah. I think it's so valuable and it's so rewarding. You know, I see my mom who, has trouble sometimes getting upstairs now. She needs the banister. To be able to get her to walk upstairs without the banister would be a huge win. I'd be like, that's incredible. Your legs are stable. I know you're going to fall slightly less. Just all of that, it seems really rewarding.
Yes.
Because they need it more than we do. Like young people, they can handle a fall or two. An elderly person, a single fall can mean quality of life
a lot
goes
of broken
great
bones and all of that. Yes.
One of my climbing friends had said the most important muscle group for elderly people is actually grip strength. To be able to hold on to something without falling will save either their life or their quality of life significantly. Just to be able to fall, but hold on and not fall completely will save a lot of lives or a lot of quality of life. Right. And he was like, so grip strength is so important for, the elderly. And a lot of elderly don't have that grip strength anymore. So when they fall, they can't have anything to grab onto. And then they either hit their head, break a leg, something like that.
Or even pull themselves up afterwards.
Exactly. That's so important. And so he was like, he tries to teach older people just to hold on to something, grab something. And I think it's important. I think about it in terms of my mother all the time. So I'm always like, maybe I should get back there and really like train my mom a little bit.
Well, that's also why I'm relocating back to the States, and it's because of my mother.
Yeah.
It's funny, my father is the same age, but my father was a dancer, so he has maintained his
somewhat fitness. Yeah.
When I went to visit him, every morning he got up and exercised for
great.
15, 20 minutes. And he's like, "Oh, are you coming?" I'm like, "Nope." But his quality of life is so much different from hers. But only when I'm around will she do any workout, anything. So that was the major thing for me relocating back. Because I could stay here still, but family is important.
Family's so important. I completely agree. All right. That's all I got for you. That was a great interview. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate
No,
it.
thank you for inviting me again.
I'm really sad that you're leaving. I'm going to try to get in more classes with you before you go.
Okay.
Okay? All right. That's Alicia, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Welcome to the BingKing podcast.